Hey, welcome to episode 75 of the Gig Life podcast. I'm your host, Stevie Taylor. Before we chat to Ara Adams-Tamatea, I just wanted to let you know that you can subscribe to the Gig Life podcast. Go to thegiglifepodcast.com, scroll to the bottom of that first page and click on the red button. Pick your favourite podcast app and hit that subscribe button. You can even set it to automatic downloads so all the new episodes get delivered straight to your favourite app. Also, if you dig this episode or any of the others, please share it with a friend or on your socials. Help get the word out there. The Gig Life podcast is free. You don't have to pay anything, ever. But if you find the value in the Gig Life podcast, you can securely donate. Go to the Gig Life podcast and click on that donate button. You can give as little or as much as you like. Any donation made will go back into creating the great content for this podcast. Now, if you're into live Facebook shows and you like a good laugh, go check out the Catch-Up. Not the sauce, not the ketchup. Go check out the Catch-Up. The Catch-Up is a Facebook live show with just a couple of the bros, aka Josh Gage and Mr. Lavender, catching up, talking kaka, talking shit about all sorts of things, and get ready to have a laugh. So that features Josh Gage, genuine crack-up fella from Sydney, Ronnie Lavender, the crack-up bro on the Gold Coast, and Gino Hawkins, the bro that does all the tech stuff. The show was streamed live on a Sunday afternoon, but all their previous shows are there to watch on the Facebook page. So I'll put a link to the catch-up in the show notes of this episode, so go check that out. Okay, episode 75, Ara Adams-Tamatea. Here we go. My guest today is Ara Adams-Tamatea. Ara is the bass player for New Zealand band L.A.B. Born in the Hutt Valley of New Zealand, growing up on the Kapiti Coast, music was always around and bass was always the instrument for Ara. The backyard jams with the whanau, having to learn guitar for the local kapa haka group because he couldn't work out the actions, to seeing the Eagles' Hell Freezes over concert and having that epiphany moment that this music thing was what he wanted to do with his life. A move to Hamilton to study at uni, playing in cover bands, which led him to joining Katchafire as full-time bass player and manager, to becoming a DJ, a promoter, and then just wanting to go back and playing bass again, which led him to stints with Magic Paora, 1814, Sons of Zion, Paua, the Marley NZ Allstars, and ultimately his home now, his vehicle, L.A.B. Ara is an incredible musician, a self-confessed music geek, a kind and humble man, and a real mean hang. It's all here, ladies and gentlemen, so please give a big hi to a big welcome to Ara Adams-Tamatea. Cheers. All right, I think we're rolling. Welcome to the Gig Life podcast. Ara Adams-Tamatea. How you going, brother?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, bro. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. You're
Sweet.
in Mount Maunganui at the moment?
I am. Yeah, Papamoa, Tauranga Moana. Yeah.
I just want to congratulate you guys on the massive summer that you've had, L.A.B. Looks like you guys are just killing it, man. And it's also really great to see that the new Aussie tour that you've got coming up is basically sold out as well.
It's pretty nuts.
Heaps of the bros are bummed out. They missed out, man. Yeah, too slow.
Yeah,
too slow.
Yeah. It's pretty surreal to hear how all our whanau over there in Oz have taken to us. So, yeah, it's really humble, bro.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We got our tickets to Sydney, so we'll be there again.
Cool. See you in the green room again.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. Well, I'll just tell the listeners that we met last year in October when L.A.B came to Sydney. Hung out and had a bit of a chat. And I remember saying to you, "Oh, bro, you be keen on coming on the podcast?" And you're like, "Oh, bro, if you think it'll be interesting." Of course it'll be.
I'm still wondering whether, if anyone would think this is interesting, but yeah.
Nah,
we'll
come
see.
on, bro. Yeah, awesome. All right, bro. So, we just talked a bit about the massive L.A.B summer, and that's off the back of the new album L.A.B 3, which was released December 2019.
That's the one, yep.
Yep.
Got done your facts, got your homework done, mate.
Yeah, I've got to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about, eh? Yeah. All right. So before we talk a little bit more about how that sort of all that touring and stuff went down, what we usually do is roll it right back to the beginning, bro. How it all started for you, and a little bit of your upbringing and how all the music came into things, and so we'll do that now.
Cool.
So, bro,
right.
you're from Upper Hutt in the Wellington area.
Yeah, born in Upper Hutt. Spent a lot of time. I was raised in the Wellington region as a whole. Spent a lot of my time out on the Kapiti Coast, Paraparaumu. And then decided that when I got to the end of college that I wanted to get as far away from that place as I could, just, to find my own feet, and found myself in Hamilton. So, yeah.
So back in Wellington or Kapiti Coast, when did music start? Was music in the family?
Yeah, it would have been from all the garage parties, basically, that I remember fondly as a kid. I used to love that whole scene of, all the uncles, all the aunties, my dad on guitar, or everyone on guitar, but I specifically remember seeing my dad on the guitar a lot. And, just the happiness. Obviously, everyone was drinking, everyone was having a great time, but that was kind of my first introduction, I suppose, to playing live. Was that garage scene and hearing songs that I never heard on the radio until years or decades later, but first hearing them in the garage.
So what sort of stuff?
Oh, mate. The man, stuff like Candida by Dawn, a lot of country stuff, actually. Just what was ever popular at the time. And, I remember them singing Mark Williams' Guess It Doesn't Matter Anymore remake that he did. Dawn Knocked 3 times. Obviously 10 guitars, just that whole feel-good, happy vibes, lots of Māoris in the garage singing at the top of their lungs. And, that would be my first memory of, bro, harmonies. And, it was always, I always had a positive experience with those vibes. I never saw anything bad or anything negative. So that was, it was just awesome.
That's massive. So were you playing guitar or was it straight into bass straight away?
I always wanted to play bass, bro.
Okay.
From like the age of 8. There were 3 main reasons that I put down to that. Ryan Monga from Arija was probably one of the biggest reasons why. When I heard him slap the bass, watching you, and I've had many conversations with Ryan about this. But then there was a song called "Lies" by Jonathan Butler, and just the sound of that slapping bass again. And Lisa and Colt Jam did a song called "Lost in Emotion," and it just had the slap funk sound. And I was like, man, whatever that is, that's my calling. And of course, no one at that time had basses. They barely had 6 strings on guitars back then. So the guitar was the only instrument that I could kind of get my hands on. But I knew at an early age that I wanted to play bass. I just couldn't get my hands on one until I was about 20 years old, to be honest. So, so I learnt the guitar by default because I wanted to learn something.
Yeah. Were you just picking out the 4 strings on a guitar and trying to work out bass lines?
Initially, even though I knew that I was going to play bass, when I picked up the guitar, I was actually, strumming away and learning to play. And then at college, I was part of the kapa group. And because I was too lazy to learn actions for the action songs and stuff, I just picked up the guitar and wanted to play the guitar for kapa. And so that was my job, I suppose, back in college days in kapa. Was playing the guitar, and I took that real seriously. Like, I just knew that it was. I must have known. I didn't know at the time, but looking back, I must have known that. This is what I really wanted to do, and I threw everything into making sure I was, as good as I could, or as I can be. So, I didn't actually start learning to play the bass though on the guitar. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. So, Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, totally. So once it was time to learn the bass, did you seek out some teachers, or are you all self-taught?
No, pretty much. Like, I knew by playing the chords and stuff to a whole bunch of, garage parties myself and kapaka, that I knew where the notes were on the bass. So when I did get my bass, I ended up making 3 tapes. Back in the days of tapes where you could, record your own blank tapes, and made 3 albums or, mixtapes of just songs that I wanted to learn on bass, and just try to, learn it by ear. And I didn't even have an amp. I just had a tape deck with headphones with a big coily bloody, lead from your headphones that went into the tape deck. And I sat there, man, I spent a minimum of 6 to 8 hours a day. And more, but minimum of a long time sitting at that tape deck, just listening to the bass notes and then trying to find them and realizing the patterns, and that's how I did it. When did you first start playing in bands? About 6 months after I got my first bass. I threw myself into it. I was at university at the time. And I don't know how I passed, to be honest, because I was just so engrossed with learning this instrument. And it was about 6 months later, after getting my first bass, which was a $300 P-bass copy from Cash Converters, that I joined a band, and then that whole the dynamics that come along with being in that was something new to me again, because being a kapaka guitarist, you are the entire band when you play. Whereas, when you're a bass player, obviously you've got your role, you've got your part, and everyone else has got theirs. So it was cool. It was everything that I was looking for to learn. And I was just grateful to those early guys that put up with me overplaying and all that kind of stuff.
Did you ever have the idea in your head that music is what you wanted to do for a living? Did you ever have that dream?
There was a poignant moment. It was the 25th of November. It was 1996. I went to Western Springs.
You got a date. You got a date and everything.
Yeah, far out. It's burned into my head, mate. It was
that's awesome.
The day when Eagles Hell Freezers Over tour came to New Zealand. I was at Western Springs, my favourite band of all time, and just went to it, and it was just like, it was that moment of clarity that that I just knew from then. It was like, that's it. I was second year at university, so I still had to fumble through a third year in order to pass. But it was actually from that moment on that I realised that's what I've seen and what I've experienced and what I felt was the very thing that I've been chasing ever since. So
man, that's massive. Yeah, and you got to see the Eagles again not too long ago, eh?
Yeah. I saw them. I saw them 3 times in total now. So there was another gig that they did at Mount Smart here in New Zealand. That's when Glenn Fry was still alive, and then they returned with Vince Gill and Deacon Fry playing in place of Glenn. Saw him at the arena here in Auckland, and front row seats to that. Don't know how I scored those seats, just the luck of the draw, and man, I didn't know how to put into words the feelings when I go to live shows, and especially one as important to my career as seeing the Eagles. So,
what was that like to go that third time after Glenn Fry had died? seeing his son there.
Yes, it was awesome. Like? It was really good. I remember they came out to Seven Bridges Road, which, if you know the song, it's just like, wow, we were just all blown away. And then they gave Deacon the next song. So that they didn't kind of like warm him into it. They just chucked him straight into the next song with Take It Easy. And that I was just like, wow, man, this kid's something special to be able to do that, and he's got all these legends surrounding him on stage. And this guy's, I think he's in his 20s, maybe early 30s. But to be able to just be as comfortable as he was on stage and deliver was pretty incredible. But Vince Gill too. Vince Gill, man, he was...
What a voice.
I knew... I didn't know his material. Like, I know that he's a country star and just thought, okay, country, cool. But, man, he absolutely blew me away that night. Hell of a guitarist and hell of a singer. And entertainer too. He had everyone in the palm of his hand. So, yeah, it was awesome, that third show.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so back to that, coming home from that first Eagles show, having that moment. Yeah. So what was I don't know if you remember exactly what's going through your head, but what did you do as soon as you got back to make this your career?
I was obsessed, to be honest. You probably want to call it low-key obsessed. I just lived and breathed it. By that, what do I mean? I would replay that Hell Freezes Over concert every night for I don't know how many months, maybe even been over a year. I played that Hell Freezes Over concert that I had on video, VHS.
Yep.
I learned every single bass line, every single note, every single thing. I just, when you used to look at the old record covers and you used to study those things, that's what I did, but with a VHS concert. And as a little kid, actually, I did that with Eagles albums as well. Just, I don't know, I was just drawn into it and it just kind of, I'd just be obsessed, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but, that's how badly I wanted it and how much of an impact it had on me. So,
what other music were you listening to? Were you listening to any other music, or was that it?
Yeah, no. When I first started playing bass, you're talking about, or just
around that whole Eagles obsession thing. Were you letting anything else in, or was that it?
Yeah, shit, yeah. I'm a '90s kid, man. So R&B and hip hop. So that the whole, Tupac was blown up. Snoop just came out with Doggy Style, not so long before. When it comes to 90s hip hop and all that golden era of hip hop, that was, man, I was full into that. D'Angelo, the whole neo soul, when that took off, Erykah Badu, D'Angelo, Maxwell, Eric Benet, I was besotted with that too, man. Eagles was one of those things that took me back to a time of my dad and those garage parties I talked about.
Yeah.
So all of those singing in the song stuff, whereas me as a 20 whatever old I was back in the 90s, I was very much into the music of that time as well. So a lot of hip hop, R&B,
that's cool. Now, I noticed you're into a little bit of that West Coast, the American West Coast stuff, like the Michael McDonald, and I saw a clip that you put up with Michael McDonald, and
damn,
I'm a massive
West Coast rock
fan. I'm obsessed with that stuff. That's the kind of stuff I was obsessing over when I was coming through, like Michael McDonald and Steely Dan, Toto, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So you would have had a great time with Joel, wouldn't you?
Oh, more. And Brad. Yeah, Brad.
Yeah.
He loves that stuff.
Yeah, man. I used to sit just at the radio as a kid, all through the 80s and CD players came out in the 90s. But, man, in the 80s, I would sit at the radio without even realizing that's what I was doing. And I would just listen to hours and hours of music. Every Saturday at 6 p.m. without fail, Ready to Roll was on, RTR Countdown, and seeing that countdown. And that was like that was the 30-minute program that I would wait all week for, more than the A-Team, more than MacGyver, more than
Night Rider, Incredible Hulk.
And Night Rider, all of that. I mean, the number one program was Saturday 6 p.m. RTR. I was just bro. When this might be a little bit embarrassing, but I remember like not going to sleep for hours when I should be asleep when I was a little kid, and I put the radio on. And headphones and stuff, and all I do is just listen to the radio. And back in those days, there was the Love Songs Till Midnight, or Love Songs at Midnight bloody radio show when they played all the slow jams and stuff. And I'd sit there or lie in bed for hours, just listening to slow jams. And so whatever was on the radio was getting soaked in. So and that included all that whole Michael McDonald, Toto, and
awesome.
All the radio huge artists of that era.
Wicked, man.
Try not to waffle on there.
No, that's what we're here for, bro. All right, let's talk about some more bands. When did you start, or can you remember your first paid gig?
Ooh, paid gig. Would have been in the covers band. I don't remember the gig itself, but I do remember when I left that Eagles concert. The first goal of that whole once I left that concert was I wanted to be a professional musician, and by that I just wanted to get paid or be able to make a living off music for just a tiny bit of time. Like I would have been happy if it lasted only 3 months, but it was just something that I was striving for. And so when I got my first paying gig, it was like the first step towards that goal of being able to say, hey, look, for 3 months of my life or whatever time of my life, I was able to say that I use music as a way to support myself. Yep. So it was definitely a stepping stone towards that. So I don't remember the gig, but I do remember thinking, this is the evolution of that dream, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So by that stage, you're up in Hamilton. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. No, I was living in Hamilton. I was at Waikato Uni when I went to the Eagles concert. So yeah. Okay.
What was the scene like? The covers band scene in Hamilton around that time?
Oh man, great question. Man, back in those days, there was a couple of bands that I just used to follow all the time. Solitaire was a big Hamilton covers band, and wherever they went, they just crowds would pack out the pubs. And back in the early 90s when I was at Waikato Uni, there was a venue called the Hillcrest Tavern, which I'm pretty sure at the time was the biggest pub in New Zealand. It was it was slammed like door to door, 2,000 people. This place is huge. And Solitaire would just play there, on any given kind of weekend. And that was the place. If you lived in Hamilton, everyone drank at the Hilly. It was just the hub of all kind of nightlife activity. And then when it closed, then everyone went into town, but everyone all started at the Hilly. So Solitaire, to answer your question, Solitaire, Nonoa, the Nonoa band, which is a family band. Just a side note, Lloyd Nonoa, he was the lead singer of that band, and he actually jammed with Toto in Japan. So there you go.
Is that right?
Yeah. He was, unfortunately, he died way too early. Not sure why, but an amazing band, they were amazing musicians, man. Like I was exposed to these dudes who were just shredding and just killer chops, groove for days, and I was just like, man, if I want to play on that level, I was like, man, I'm nothing. I'm just at this level, and they're at that level, So it definitely, lit a fire in me as well to go, okay, that's the level that you need to play at if I want to achieve what I wanted to achieve, which was that, living off music. So, it was real important that I got to see that caliber of musicianship and practice my ass off for years to try and get anywhere close to that. So those two bands especially, though.
Yep. So with your going back to the practice thing again, has it always been putting on the song and trying to work the song out yourself, or was there ever anyone that sat you down and went, "Oh, these are scales, progressions, that kind of stuff"? Or is that stuff you've always worked out yourself?
No, it's pretty much been. If there was a song I wanted to learn, then you have to just find the song, and slow it down or whatever you got to do to learn it. However, back in the 90s, no YouTube back in those days, and I was hungry for any information that I could get. So Starlicks videos, Hot Licks videos, they were like $100 each, and if you ordered it, it would take like 6 weeks on a ship to get to New Zealand. So it was, that was. There weren't many ways to get a hold of that scales and stuff. But Bass Player magazine was probably one of the biggest, because there's bugger all stuff on bass, or specifically to bass. We were always the poor cousin of the guitarist who had like 15 magazines all for themselves. And so when I found out Bass Player, that would come out monthly. Yeah. And when it did, so I subscribed to that at the local. This is magazine stores. Remember magazine stores?
Yeah, man.
Wow, going back in the day.
And those other places, record. What are they called? Record stores.
Yeah. Yep, man, all of that. So I had my own subscription at the magazine shop, and man, when that came out every month, I would read that cover to cover, like in one day. Sorry. And just like album covers, I would study that magazine, and that had stuff like scales in it, and different styles, and even though it was all reading, and I can't read, you kind of figure it out, and so that's how much I was into just getting my hands on anything. Yeah.
So, what was the next step towards pursuing it? Like you've been studying your ass off all these magazines and listening to the CDs, going to the concerts and following these bands around. Were the bands that you were knocking around with at the time, did you have plans for those bands?
Oh man,
yeah.
I was probably next? I was like just like any musician. You go from band to band, and you hope that each step, every time you go to that new band, it's the band that you've been waiting for to kind of kick you off. And so I was I'd been in a bunch of bands that had just got nowhere, or very rarely got gigs. And I was a real geek, man. I'm still a geek, but a music geek. But I would study and be so super prepared for just the most kind of normal covers gig. But that's because I wanted that band to be successful and be the one that I was looking for. It just so happened that like after going through years and years of failed band startups, or someone looking for a bass player, so you jump in and have a try and realize, oh man, these guys, this ain't gonna work out. So years and years of that happened, and I used to work at Work and Income, which is, I don't know what you guys call that over there in Aussie. Centrelink, I think it is.
Oh, yeah,
like that.
Yep.
The dole and stuff. I'm just putting my power adapter in my laptop.
Yeah, all good.
Last thing we need is my laptop cutting out. So I used to work there, and that was just the 9 to 5, and that was just what I had to do to make a living. And there was a mutual friend there, so I was workmates with a guy. He happened to be mates with this band. And so they said they needed a bass player. So like every other time in my life, I was like, hoping it's the one. Their band ended up being Katchafire.
Hey.
So, yeah. And I remember going to their first lot of shows, and the lineup was completely different to what we recognise Katchafire as today. But I was like, oh my God, what is this band? So yeah, it went through a number of personnel changes behind the scenes, and you never know. You just never know, because at the time when I heard them, I'm like, this, but I'll give it a go, and yeah, I mean, how lucky I was to be in the right place, the right time, and just know the right person, because I didn't know the boys. I didn't know the band at all. It just happened to have a mutual friend who introduced me to them, and well, the rest is kind of history from there. So, yeah. I mean, we can go into that further, but I'll let you ask if you want to know that stuff, because it can kind of get a bit waffly.
Definitely let's go into that, because that's like you said, that's a big, massive part of your story. So yeah, man. So this was you joined early 2000s. Is that right? 2001. Is that right?
Yeah, be around there. It's kind of weird, because when I first started jamming with the bros, I maybe jammed with them for 6 months or something like that, and I don't even know if we did any gigs. But long story short, I do remember there being a time where I went, this band ain't gonna go anywhere. So I left that band like 2000 or 2001. And then I was playing in this jazz band in this restaurant, and I had my eyes closed like I normally do, because I'm pretending I'm playing at Wembley or who knows what I was dreaming of. And Logan, who's the lead singer of the band now, was in front of me, and he just said, and I remember that. And I think he said something like, "Oh, look, I don't know what happened, but I do remember that moment." And then not long after that, I got pulled in because they had a gig, but they didn't have a bass player for this one gig. They did have a bass player, but not for their gig. And so I went back to do a little rehearsal with them, for this gig that they had, because, man, I was all about getting the gigs. And, I remember that first hit out that we had, and we went through like 40 or 50 Bob Marley songs and UB40 songs and Peter Tosh songs. In like just a matter of hours. Like, we would just do, okay, what's the intro, what's the verse, chorus, outro, or bridge, outro, sweet, next one. And I was on a real roll thinking, holy shit, I somehow know all of these songs. Remember I was talking about the radio just kind of ingrained?
Yeah, bro, yeah.
I didn't even realize how much reggae that I actually knew, or how much information I retained. So they wanted to have a break, and I was like, no, bro, because I was in the tent as dude back then. Let's keep smashing out these songs for this gig. And me being a real music geek, I wanted to be the best prepared as what I could be. And it was actually from that point on that the other bass player never came back. His name was Shocker, cool guy. And then that's when I came back to Katchafire full time. So there was that little time period there that I wasn't in the band. And then, so I kind of went from wanting to be in a band like Solitaire, playing covers to all these packed out pubs, because that's all I saw, to somehow finding myself in Katchafire and going down that route instead of originals, which I thought was beyond my capability, to be honest. I just thought that, oh man, that's a dream, but not an attainable dream. So I'm kind of going off track a bit, but that's how that's how my early days with Katchafire started. So I'll try and stop it there unless you want to know more.
Well, so tell us when that first sort of break came for Katchafire.
That's an easy one. There was a what do you call it? Like what we would call now like an idol contest. I don't know what we call it, a talent quest or some shit, something like that. So there was one at a venue called Sheepies in Papakura, and it was put on by Dawn Raid. They had a series of heats, I think, and the winner of each heat then went into the final. Then the final, whoever won the final got to win 2 recordings with Dawn Raid Studios. So we went up there. I have no idea what 2 songs we done for the heat. We took out the heat, which is like, wow, this is buzzy, because no one's really listening to reggae. It was all hard, it was all hip-hop at the time. So Scribe, P Money, New Zealand hip-hop was taking off. It was a mean time to be in hip-hop, and I'm a fan of hip-hop. So I was surprised that this reggae band from Hamilton, we're in South Auckland, but this reggae band from Hamilton took out this heat. The following week was the final. Somehow we won that. And so we won 2 recordings with Dawn Raid. So we went back up to Dawn Raid, I don't know how long after, but we went up to Dawn Raid and we recorded 2 songs. One of them was called Giddy Up and the other one was called Bounce.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a record contract with Dawn Raid. After that, I don't know. I can't remember too much. It's a bit hazy at that time, but we'd never signed with Dawn Raid because we got this other contract by so the people that own My FM. This is when it was iwi owned, and they were the number one kind of R&B and urban station, and had a lot of influence with the iwi stations back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up signing with them. And I don't know how they heard Giddy Up, but it was on the back of Giddy Up that they signed us. So, that's kind of, that's what happened. And it was all kind of surreal and how it happened, but it happened. You couldn't really plan it. You couldn't plan it like that. It was just a weird series of events that led us to that time.
Mm.
Yeah.
From that point of signing with did you go in and do some more recording? Yeah. So the next song we recorded, or the next single anyway, was Who You With. We must have gone straight into doing the album, actually. And a lot of that was done at the Polytech, Hamilton, Waikato Polytech, just because that was local. A lot of it was actually done at Logan's apartment, or Logan and Geordie's apartment in town. So they invested in a little Pro Tools setup, Digi 001, which just seemed like the most amazing thing on earth at the time. Now there's more power in the iPhone than back in those computers. So. But so a lot of pre-production was done there, and Logan and Jordan, because they were living in their own apartment and had those gears, were just living and breathing, recording, and so between stuff that they'd done at home, and studio work, we were able to get that first album done. And was it touring straight after that? Like once that album released, what happened?
Yeah, we were touring, or not touring. We in the midst of all of that happening, we were. Remember how I said we were playing like 4 hours or learning 40 to 50 UB40. So we were doing that every Friday or every Saturday, at least once a week. So I finally got my plate full. My cup was full with playing these gigs every week, and we were playing these 4-hour cover gigs, and they were just covers, strictly just covers, because no one knew us. We were just a covers band, and man, they were fun. It was awesome. And then once we kind of won that competition and started recording, then we'd put our songs in the set without people kind of realizing that they were originals, just to gauge and see how the reaction was to it. But once put it on My FM, obviously, all the iwi stations also picked it up because they had a lot of influence with them. And so it was just a natural progression. Even though we were still playing 4-hour covers gigs, we were now playing 4-hour gigs, mostly made up of covers, but then made up with the 12 or 13 songs that we had on the first album as well. So it wasn't, just touring the album as such. It was just doing 4-hour gigs, which included the album.
Right. So, right. You stayed with the band until 2007?
Yeah, you've done some homework. Yeah.
In between 2001, 2007, how many gigs you reckon you did? How often were you playing? When did the big tours kick off?
It's really hard to. There was no fine line drawn between the covers gigs and the originals gigs. It wasn't so much big tours that was happening. What happened was we were going on more so the big festivals, like Sound Splash, like Pari Haka, to name a few, and a Rhythm and Vine. Big Day Out. We've done Big Day Out. We've done Rhythm and Vines. It was. But we carried on doing those kind of 4-hour shows pretty much through to when I finished up in 2007. yeah, obviously we had more original material because we had 2 albums out by the time I left.
Yep.
And I was also there for some of the third album as well. So the boys had written stuff. So we'd trial some of the third album songs too at the gigs up until I departed in 2007. So yeah, we never toured New Zealand like in the traditional sense. It was always those kind of 4-hour gigs, and that's what we prided ourselves on.
Right.
Yeah, working hard and over-delivering the product. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was just the way we decided to do things.
Yeah, and you took on the manager's role.
Oh God, yep, yeah. Remember me telling you I was? No. It was just, remember how I said I was like, super intense and being a real geek of So I just wanted to just throw myself as much as I could into it, and so I took on the management role of Katchafire through pretty much from 2002. Asked my missus at the time. Well, she's still my missus too, by the way.
Yeah, gotcha.
To my left, so I just got to. Yeah. So she took a leap of faith and said, "Okay, you can, leave work." Basically, because I was going to get fired anyway. Right. We put a phone line in, and and the rest was history. I started making calls to pubs and venues, and it kind of happened where I was paying the wages or looking after the money and finding the gigs and stuff like that. The reason why I kind of went, oh God, with the management is I was probably too OCD on it, and if I'm being honest, it was the reason why I had to end up leaving Katchafire.
Okay.
Because I didn't know how to, because it was new. This whole musical journey was new to everyone in the band. And so I wanted it to be successful as much as I can, or as much as I could see it. But of course, there's creative differences with people. And how do I say this? When you're the manager of your friends, you end up becoming like the guy that's always telling them, what time to get up, what time to hop in the van, we're doing this and we're doing that. And I think that just wore away on them, and it definitely had its toll on me, telling my mates what to do all the time. So our friendships really got worn down to nothing, where they were hating me and I was hating them, which is a shame because I never left the band because I couldn't play bass. I left the band because I didn't know how to balance. Well, really, I should have just not managed the band from a certain time, but I couldn't see that at that time. So the only way I could get my happiness back, I felt, was to leave the band. So, man, that went a bit dark and a bit dreary.
No, all good.
Sorry about that.
No, man, it's part of your story. I think it's cool to talk about it as long as you're comfortable talking about it, bro.
No, I'm all good.
Oh, sweet.
I'm in constant contact with the boys. So everything's all good now. Time heals. So we're all mates, and I realise now the what I did wasn't the best thing I could have done, but I was young. I was learning, how to handle different things, and I just didn't do it. I just had to leave, unfortunately, to kind of learn those lessons. So, all is good now, obviously.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so once that sort of ended up, did you take yourself away from music, break away from it, or did you just get straight back into something else?
Nah, it was just I've been stayed in the music industry. So as soon as I left the band, I thought, because I was managing the band, obviously, as well as playing, I thought when I chucked everything in, that all my connections with Katchafire would have also been cut.
Okay.
I've been so fortunate that the boys kept me on in another role in the background. So they basically were paying me a wage, even though I wasn't playing in the band. I was doing some other managerial stuff for them, and still to this day, I do that for them. So, man, I owe Katchafire a crap load. for getting me through financially through those tough times.
Oh, man, awesome.
What else did I do? I helped. Here's a weird little thing. I ended up helping Michelle Quarter for a few months with their band Quarter, who were blowing up. Obviously, never realising that year's time, Brad and Stu and I would be in the band together. That didn't last long. I needed to get away from that for the same reason that I needed to get away from Katchafire. I didn't want to be in a position where I'm mates with my bros, but then I'm telling them what to do. So once I realised, this is history repeating itself, I had to quickly leave that. So I just did a whole bunch of roles in Music Pro. I was DJing, so we had a resident DJ gig, so I was DJing every weekend. What else was I doing? I was a booking agent for a bunch of bands, so I did some tours and gigs for Open Souls, House of Shem, Cornerstone Roots, Unity Pacific. You might not know this, but I ended up being a promoter and brought over a band called Kolohe Kai to New Zealand and Rebel Soldiers. So I was the first one to tour them. And I was kind of just bouncing around in a whole bunch of different roles, but they were all within the music industry. I haven't had a job, like a one that supports my family outside the music industry since 2002. So I've been super blessed to
congratulations
still be
massive.
Here. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, remember, I only wanted to do this for 3 months. I would have been happy with 3 months.
Yeah.
And now we're going on 18 years and knock on wood that it, carries on a bit longer.
Yeah. You also played a bit with 1814, Sons of Zion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just on Sons of Zion, Harlan McKenzie, you were playing with Harlan in the band?
Yeah, with Harlan. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Harlan's from Masterton. And he was we didn't know each other in Masterton, but I used to go to Makota College, and I was in a band that was in the Smoke Free Rock Quest, and Harlan used to go to Wairarapa College, and he was in a band at the Rock Quest, and both our bands got through to regionals and played the I think it was a regional finals at the State Theatre in Wellington, and I got the video somewhere, and man, he was a real prodigy back then, just he's an incredible guitarist now, but just back then, he was killing it, man.
Yeah, oh man, he's such a good guy too. He's such a cool guy to hang out with on the road. As you say, killer guitarist and just killer muso. So yeah. I don't know who was from down those ways though.
Now, what were you doing when the L.A.B gig came along? How did that come about?
Yep. Remember how I said this is kind of history repeating itself all over again. But so there was a moment. I'm gonna go back just a little bit further to give it some context. In 2012, I realized I'd been doing this whole booking agent and promoter and DJ and just all these other roles. And then I realized in June of 2012, I get it now. All I want to do is play. So then all of a sudden I realized what I wanted to do, because I was kind of doing a whole bunch of roles, not really, I was convincing myself that's what I wanted to do, but really I was just lying to myself. So I had one of those kind of moments where I realized, you need to get back on playing bass and get back on stage. So from that point on in 2012, I basically just became obsessed again with wanting to get my chops up and surround myself with people who might give me opportunities and stuff. So I'd done a few stints with Magic Paora. I owe a lot to her and her family, her father, who threw a whole bunch of New Zealand gigs my way. And then one day he rang up out of the blue and goes, "Hey, what are you doing next week?" And I was going, I don't know, nothing really. Do you want to go to L.A? I was like, yep, sweet. So just like that. I didn't know how this was all going to happen, but long story short, he needed someone to go over to LA to play bass for his daughter Magic, who had a festival slot at a big festival over in America called Reggae on the River, which is one of the longest serving reggae festivals in the world. Mm-hmm. And the band that she had in America, their bass player couldn't do it. So, so I got that phone call and I went, wow, finally I'm kind of back where I wanted to be. But after that gig, it all kind of dried up. It was nothing continuous. And then Sons of Zion, Dylan Stewart, who was the bass player at the time, he couldn't do a bunch of shows because I think his missus was expecting their babies. So he threw me a few gigs and I was like, man, this is great, But I was always in that fill-in role. So I did a bunch of shows with Sons, a bunch of shows with Magic. Holly Smith, I did one show with her for Rhythm and Vines. And 1814, Jimmy Colbert, one of my good mates, he couldn't do a couple of gigs, so he threw a couple of gigs my way. Paua, I don't know if you know Paua, up there in Aussie, Brisbane, Gold Coast band. So they just happened to do a New Zealand tour. So all of these bands, what I'm trying to paint a picture of is I knew what I wanted to do. And I was getting these opportunities like bites on a fishing line. But nothing was sticking. Like I'd get them and then I had to give them back. So Paua was another one. That was such a cool tour. They just messaged me one time and says, oh, look, we're doing this New Zealand tour, but their bass player, Jade, he couldn't make the tour. So with no rehearsals, not one rehearsal, I learned all of their stuff and we just hit the ground running, and it was one of the coolest tours we had. So we're going from complete strangers with half the band I'd never met to just on a bus for 2 weeks, and and it was awesome. It was awesome. But once again, when it finished, nothing stuck. There was no more gigs to look forward to. I was looking for the next paycheck, so to say. So and then a band called L.A.B, their bass player, who at the time was Rory McCartney, they had a bunch of shows coming up. No one knew L.A.B back then. So there I was playing 3 shows with the boys. I've known that, obviously, I knew Brad and Stu from back in the day we Katchafire and Quarter would play together. And I've known Joel for years. We used to hang out at jam nights and stuff at the Mount. So, so stuff like that was happening. I'm waffling on here, but yeah, so once again, 3 gigs.
Keep it up.
And so I used to dream. I was just so like in my mind, I was like, man, I want this so bad. I knew where I wanted to be. I knew where I wanted to go, but I had no vehicle to get there. I had no group to get me where I wanted, but I wanted it so bad. So it's one of the most frustrating feelings to know what you want to do, but unsure of what's going to get me there. And so you're looking for the next... Oh, then I heard Sons of Zion. Sorry, on another note, Dylan left the band. And I was like, finally, this might be my chance, since I've done a few gigs with him. But that didn't eventuate, obviously. So it was kind of like, man, when is this ever going to happen? So you always question, you always doubt yourself. But what I'm trying to say is that I never lost faith in the fact that it would happen. But man, was it hella frustrating for years, thinking that, okay, I'm in 1814, sweet, this is going to be the thing that kicks it off. Nah. Oh, Sons of Zion, sweet, kicks it. Nah. So everything kind of just never kicked off. End of 2016, I'm going to go off on a tangent again, hope you don't mind.
Not at all.
There was a project called the Marley NZ Allstars. Mm-hmm. And I'd seen this lineup back in June. And so I saw all of these artists, Annie, not Annie on that one. She came later. But anyway, a whole bunch of artists. And I was like, man, how come I wasn't, I would love to be in a part of this. but I knew the reason why I wasn't a part of that, because no one knew me. I mean, I was an old bass player from Katchafire like 10 years ago. No one's going to remember me or even think of me when it comes to that project. I find out later that Fran Corder, who's a good friend of mine, was the bass player, and I'm like, wow, that makes a shitload of sense. Dude can, it's a flat out amazing singer.
Yeah.
And he could flat out play the bass. So that makes sense that he's the bass player for that project. Okay, so what happened from there on in is that Joel got a part of that project. I wasn't in L.A.B at the time. Joel was in L.A.B and got in the project. And the drummer for that project happens to live in Tauranga as well. Paul Russell used to play in Super Groove as well as many other bands.
Yep.
So I said, oh, man, I'll help you guys if you want. You know, we can have a jam and I'll help you guys by playing the bass and those Bob Marley songs that you guys have got to learn, because they're not too familiar with that music. Whereas my background with Katchafire and playing 40, 50 Bob Marley songs, man, I was ready to go. So, so I'm trying to fast forward this on. So I had a jam with the boys. That was cool. Wish them all the best of luck. They ended up doing a TV appearance a week before the first show, a week before their first rehearsals and then the first show. They find out that they don't have a bass player because Fran didn't want to play bass and sing lead at the same time. Every other person on their project says, no, I'm not playing reggae bass. No, because I don't know the reason why, but they had no bass player. Joel mentioned to the promoter, hey, there's a guy in Tauranga, ex-Katchafire, he'd be keen as, you don't even have to pay him. And he was right. So I got involved with that project by just being in the right place, right time. And so I felt like, I'd finally I've got some traction. I've got some headway into where I wanted to be. And so that Christmas and that I was doing those shows with Marley Allstars. Oh, God, that was, man, you can cut all this out, bro. Was just way too long.
I'm not cutting anything.
Right. But, so those shows were limited. Those shows were numbered because everyone else was, they had their own bands, whether it's Katchafire or Black Seeds or, they were all part of a bigger project, except for me. So there I am again. Just my man, shit, I want this so bad. So what happened next? I won't go into the finer details of how I got into L.A.B, but the next chapter of that story is the fact that I had a meeting with Joel on a Wednesday in March at our local pub over a beer. I kind of had an inkling as to what was going to go down just based upon messages leading up to that point. So that was a night, and on Sunday night I was in Wellington with the boys, with Joel, Brad, and Stu. And then so we got there Sunday night to record first thing Monday morning. And so I wasn't in L.A.B, but I knew that they needed a bass player. So they were in there to carry on recording their first album.
The next day, you were in there as what you thought as a session bass player.
Well, I knew they needed a full-time bass player. Okay. I didn't want to be a session bass player, but I knew if I stuffed it up that it's probably all it would be. So I treated it really much like a it was an audition, and normally I'd kind of you do an audition like on a live gig, whereas this is a studio gig. They're recording their album. And normally you've got your band kind of locked in when you because they've already recorded. They'd already recorded Starry Eyes and Ain't No Use. So they'd already started the first album. And then I got in there. The first day we recorded Jimmy, but then we actually scrapped it. It just wasn't going in the direction that. It just didn't sound right. Long story short, so I was like, damn, shit. Man, this isn't going well if we've just wasted a whole day recording. Shit. Because, obviously I'm just trying to do my best and secure a spot. The next day, Tuesday, we recorded She's Gone, which is the first track of album 1.
Yep.
And the rest is kind of history. I remember that recording session quite vividly, and hearing the magic in the recording and the chemistry between, because Joel, Brad and myself, we tracked that live, that whole song. So yeah, we felt there was a good vibe, there's a good energy in the room, and I knew I'd put my best foot forward to prove that I'm the right person to be in this band. And so that was a long story to get to that point, which was that was kind of when I became a member, I suppose, of L.A.B.
So was there?
You should ask them too, because I'm not sure when they said I was a member.
No, all good. Was there a conversation had, like, okay, bro, you're in the band?
Yeah,
or was
it
it just,
was,
or
but
was it just like, turn up on Monday, do the same thing?
It was, it was like it wasn't early in the piece. It was like after the album had been done and we'd already handed the masters over and stuff like that. That conversation there, it was said, but it was kind of, there was a feeling of, because I'd already done by that stage live gigs with them. So kind of like a whole year had basically gone by before that was ever verbalized. But the feeling was there for quite some time before that. It's like, because the first lot of recordings went so well, and then we just got a roll on. We just had a good chemistry when it came time to recording, and it just happened. We would jam in the studio. We would drink a little bit too much at times in the studio, and obviously, all your feelings come out when you're drinking. And but then we would write and record, and it was just a perfect fit between what they needed and what I wanted. And finally, that moment of going, so that was in 2017, and so it took 5 years to get from that point of knowing, I want to play bass, to finally finding the vehicle that's going to provide me.
And from 2017 to now has been quite the
ride,
quite the rocket ship. Pardon the pun.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's been three albums in 3 years.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about the processes of the album. I did speak a bit to Joel and Brad about when Josh and I spoke to Joel, you guys had just come back from your first week of recording L.A.B. 3. When I spoke when I spoke with Brad, Personify had just come out. The album hadn't come out.
Oh, right.
I think that was September, I think. Yeah. And then talking to you now, of course, the album's out and there's been a bunch of touring. And so when I was talking to Brad, he said that you're like the nighttime guy. There was an engineer in there during the day. He'd finish off, and then you'd come and do your thing. So what was what was your role there? Were you coming in and like comping takes and that kind of thing, or were you coming in and playing your parts, or just creating things? Or
I just learned enough, and really I'm no Pro Tools guy, but I learned enough to be able to still carry on our recording sessions when Lee Preble, the owner of the studio, so when he goes home at 6, we can still function and we can still record and we can still lay down ideas, and so we'll do whatever's required really, in terms of any recordings and stuff. So I would just watch and learn and ask a million questions to Lee as to, how does this work in the patch bay, and do you use that compressor, and what's your settings, and all that boring engineer stuff, which I absolutely love, and most people would put them to sleep. And the other kind of role I did, which Brad allowed me to do, like it let me just kind of screw around and play around with ideas. And often while the boys were sleeping, I would always have ideas, but didn't want to put them down on recording while the guys were awake in case they were really shit ideas, because, more times than not, they probably were shit. So in the second album especially, I got to experiment with a whole bunch of ideas and plugins and just explore. Just explore these ideas. And Brad was cool with letting me do that, because he's the main producer of all the albums. And if it sounded good, he would keep them. And if they sounded shit, he would scrap them. And more often than not, a lot of what I thought was a good idea either was kept or it led to what would become the final version of the song. I'm only talking little things like what Brad would put together would be 80-90% of the song, but then I would come along and have some fun and just try and put the icing on the cake, so to say. It's hopefully the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, makes sense. For me, I think with L.A.B. 3, I think the electric bass, your electric bass playing is more predominant in that album than the first two. I believe this is what I can hear. Did you go into the third album thinking a different way about how you're going to play the bass on that album, on how you're going to play these songs?
Not at all. So with album number 3, there's no Moog bass, there's no synth bass. Whereas on album 2 and on album 1, there was, I'd never touched a Moog bass before album 1 in my life. So when I touched this instrument, I was like, oh my God, there's Zap Roger. There's, there's all these bass sounds that I've grown up with. So I was exploring that world of bass sounds that I grew up with as a kid. So what am I trying to say? So in album 2, that was kind of another, with Fashion Dread especially, there was, a lot of Moog work. And I'm no bass player, man. I'm no synth player. I'm just a bass player whacking away on these keys. And it was hella fun. With the third album, it was just a complete blank slate, just what was needed for the songs. Because we went in there pretty much, actually, I can't even remember. I don't think there's one song. Only Heat. Heat was the only song where we kind of had the seed of the song prior to actually putting it down on recording. Every other song was just written in the studio at the time, and the songs that we were writing required electric bass guitar, and so it pretty much chose itself. It was not that we had a conscious thought to not do the Moog. It was just more of a, oh man, this song's sounding like this, and we're going to take it in that direction. So therefore, I'll grab this bass, because I used 3 basses, I think, on that album. So yeah.
Okay. What were those 3 basses? So you got a Sadowski.
Oh yeah, it's my main live bass.
Yeah.
So my number one kind of recording studio bass is my Steinberger bass. So all the reggae stuff, a lot of album 1 has got, it just records so good. It's got flat wound strings on it from when I was playing it in Katchafire still. So the strings must be about 15 years old. The Steinberger bass sounds so thick, yet it still cuts through the mix. It's kind of a weird to be able to have both of those characteristics. So yeah, but when it comes to reggae stuff, man, that is my number 1 bass. So yeah, a lot of reggae songs on that one. I used the 73 Fender Jazz with flat wounds again. So that's what I did. Like In the Air, all of those real 70s nostalgia type tracks like Lover Jane, where it had that real, like I said, old school throwback. I use that bass because, that's a 1973 jazz, and that's what musicians of that era were recording with. So it just made sense to me to use that bass. And then my main live bass, I would play that for a few tracks, which is a 5-string Sadowski, which is it's such a good bass. And I don't take the other 2 basses on the road. In fact, they're still in the studio now. I left them there after album 3 because we knew we were going back for album 4. So I just left them at the studio and said to Lee, "Go nuts, bro. Use them if you need to use them for any other acts coming through." And yeah, so that's my bass geek talk right there.
Yeah, I've got a lot of bass player listeners, and I'm a bit of a bass player, but not much.
No, I see that bass hanging behind you.
Oh yeah, that's my jazz. That's my jazz bass.
Cool.
Right, let's talk a little bit about touring of album 3,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe before that, when L.A.B. 3 dropped. How was the initial reaction? And what was the expectation? I know there would have been a fair bit of hype. Because L.A.B. 2 was pretty cool. I know me and the bros here, we were really looking forward to it, and it definitely didn't disappoint. Yeah, so how was the vibe in New Zealand when it dropped?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. It's real humbling because what we do prior to dropping the album, you've probably seen that we do those live and studio recordings. RNZ videos.
Yep.
So that's become a thing now that we kind of go there the week of, or not long before we drop the whole album, and then it's just become a thing now. So the reaction to those videos and those new songs that people haven't heard was really humbling. I think the first song that we released was In the Year before my brain's a little bit sketchy, but I'm not sure what came out first, the live recording or the official video for In the Ear. And this is prior to the album dropping.
Mm.
So, but the Radio New Zealand, the live one I'm talking about in studio, got so much. Oh yeah, I wasn't even in the country. I remember that now.
Right.
It got so much traction and feedback. It's real humbling, bro. I try not to. I get a little bit kerfuffled with my words when it comes to talking about our music and stuff, just because it's.
Well, you're proud. You're proud of it, bro. You should be. Like, it's awesome. Straight up. It's just bloody good music.
Appreciate it, bro. We didn't we were proud of the album. I know that I was super proud of the album. In terms of expectations, we just wanted it to just be liked, I suppose, or have our fan base who, from album 1 and album 2 go, "Oh man, this is cool. We like album 3 as much as we like album 1 and album 2. That was my expectation.
Mm.
The reality, though, is that it's just gone way beyond that. Like it's, the numbers and the stats show that a lot more people are listening, and it's crazy. It's really crazy and humbling and all that kind of stuff that I've said 1,000 times. So, didn't really have any expectation other than to just. The only expectation I would have was that I just wanted us to just grow and be and what am I trying to say? Just there's potential within this band. We haven't reached that potential yet. Yeah. So I just wanted the album 3 to be the next step in that journey.
Yep.
Like I still believe we haven't written our best song yet. And I still think that we've got a better album in us. Awesome. And is album 3 a step in the right direction based on what you've heard in album 1 and 2? Well, every listener can have their opinion on that, but internally, excuse me, we're real proud of the sound and the music that was on album 3. It burnt us out, man. We were so mentally fatigued and drained after finishing that album. It was. We couldn't listen to that album for like a month after it had been finished because of just how much blood, sweat, and tears and your mental energy goes into making it just right.
Yeah.
But no, hugely satisfied and proud of that album, bro.
Is album 4 coming?
Yeah. We go into the studio. It's the 3rd of March. We're in there on the 31st of March. So 28 days, 4 weeks. We will be in studio with no idea of what we're going to do. We're going to turn up. We're going to get Uber Eats, or Joel's going to cook a mean feed because he loves to cook and I love to eat. And we are just frothing at the bit to get in there. But we don't know what's going to happen. And it's huge excitement and it's quite dangerous, if you know what I mean. Like, man, going into a studio to record an album and you don't even know, we don't know what's going to happen. And that's what I love about this band, is that we could just take a spark in whatever direction Brad wants to take the idea in, and then we all just jump on it and stoke the fire, press record, go home at the end of the week going, man, where did that come from? That's one of my favorite things.
And will that?
But should be out the end of the year. Sorry.
The end of the year again. So it's 4 albums, 4 years. Yeah, man, awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit again about, or we'll go back and talk about your live shows, the touring. It must feel pretty satisfying now, and humbling too, of course, to, like this run of Australian shows you got coming up. And we did talk about this early on, how a lot of them have sold out already. It must be a pretty cool feeling knowing that you can drop a show here and there. And I noticed that you guys you're playing a show up at Power Station and also in Hamilton.
In Hamilton.
Yep.
Yeah.
No doubt those shows will probably sell out.
I hope so. But the response on social media of those 2 shows has been, it's so crazy. It's when I heard that we were going to release shows today on our messenger thread, I went, oh shit, here comes just the all the messages, and you were cool because we were messaging about this, but I knew that it was just, I get so many messages I actually can't keep up, and I'm just the bass player in the band, so I'd hate to see what Joel's and Brad's messenger box looks like, because it would be, you'd need a full-time person.
Now they call you Mr. Gadget.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Is that from Brad or Joel, is it?
Yeah, that was Joel. Why do they call you Mr. Gadget?
I like gadgets. I like thinking of the most. I like seeing a problem, and I love solution solving.
Yep.
I love to solve, not solution solving, problem solving. So, and I often do that with, if we just bought this bit of gear and we hooked it up to that bit of gear, and then that would be able to do all of these things that, and Joel is, I would call him the opposite. He's the purist. So he's all about guitar, lead, and amp. Yeah, whereas I would be, I could grab this bass and that MPC and this Ableton product and that synth and we can wire it all up and man, if I showed you, so that's me, and somehow we find a balance between his world and my world to keep each other happy.
Yeah.
But so once again, that's just the music geek in me coming out, wanting to explore. Just having a good tattoo, bro. I just love gadgets and gears and spending way too much money and owning way too much gear that doesn't get used enough.
Yeah, that's it. Can you give us a rundown on what your first live L.A.B. rig was and compare it to what it is now?
Yep. It was my Sadowski 5-string bass with a lead into the amp. That would have been it.
That was the purest udder.
That was me still just trying to make sure that I don't get fired from a band that I really don't want to get fired from. so I better play it safe. And now my setup is I've got an MPC, which we use to trigger some backing tracks for certain songs or one drops. I've got a Prophet synth bass, which isn't not even mine. It's Brad's or L.A.B's. It was bought before I was in the band. And that thing is a beast of a synth. I used to take my Moog on the road, but we realised that, we're taking way too much synths. I'm not even a synth player, but yeah. So I've reduced my rig, and my pedal board has got 3 pedals. There used to be a lot more, trust me. So it's just my wireless unit going into my preamp. No, what is it? I don't even know. My pedal board. I've only got 3 pedals, and I can't even remember them. And an octave. Sorry, a wireless unit, a preamp, and an octaver. I do want to expand on that a little bit, but I have downsized it to what it has been, man. I used to have an Ableton setup. I used to have multiple bass synths. I used to have an MPC X, which I'm not sure if you know, but it's the biggest MPC you can get. So it was a big footprint. Multiple basses. It was overkill. It was just like, man. And it would stress the hell out of me trying to set it all up in order to play the gig, because the days. And I'd use my Moog to be the controller for Ableton, and it worked. Everything always worked eventually, but the amount of grey hairs I got to try and make it all work under a pressure situation of a gig was did my head in. So it's simplified a lot more now and a lot more robust than what it used to be.
Yep. Would a bit of it being simplified, would that be the fact that Miharo's in the band now, taking up playing some of those parts that you would?
Actually, no. For me, I'm just taking care of the bass frequencies, the bass side of things. So, so whether it was on a bass guitar or a bass synth, it was irrelevant. I still had that role. Miharo coming on board though has been such an awesome thing for us in the band, and he's an awesome guy to have on the road as well. So he's a funny as dude, dry as humour, but he's cool. He's cool, and having Miharo in the band, I know you didn't ask, but having Miharo in the band has allowed us to have someone who's a real good lead or keyboardist, because Joe, and that kind of offsets with Joel being a lead guitarist. Because Stu's strengths, in my opinion, is, man, he is the rhythm king. So he won't out solo you on any given instrument, but we call him Stu the glue, and by that he just glues all the parts. He's the rhythm master, that fella. So we can allow Miharo and Joel to take on the lead parts when it's required, and Joel's just Stu's just in the pocket the whole time.
Yeah, that's massive, man. Ara, it's been an absolute honour to talk to you today, man. You're a real humble guy, and you, like I said earlier, you didn't think what you had to say people would want to listen, but I guarantee they do, and I'm glad we've done this. I can't wait for May to catch you fellas in Sydney. Yeah, right. Catch up again, and yeah, man, really can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
I appreciate you having me on here, and to the 2 listeners that might actually listen to this whole thing, I appreciate you both. One of them is probably my missus. No. In all seriousness,
and the other one's me when I edit it.
Yeah, both of you. No. I'll remember you in the Grammys. No, just that. Thanks for just even having a talk. Obviously, I can talk about anything in regards to my music journey quite easily. Yep. So I appreciate you just even having an interest. So we'll see you in May in the green room with a beer.
Looking forward to it, brother. All right, bro. Look after yourself. Yep. See you soon.
See you, brother. Thank you, bro.
See you, Ada. Thanks, brother.
by what's in your head. Already said. So now you're in the crew. Oh, tell me the shadows. Who am I to walk in your face? Only one step when I walk behind. Now I realize again in the shadows. Got the money now, it's over here. Fast cars, sleeping in the backseat. My last chance, I'll burn and see. All that I love is leaving. Gotta get back to feeling. And now we realize he's out of time. A man with a plan, but none in the shadows. Who am I? I walked in the face. Give another chance, keep me in the game. Oh, I can't pay my way in your shadow. Who am I? I walked in the face. Give another chance, keep me in the game. Oh, I can't pay my way in the shadow. I know. So I know. Got the money now, it's over here.